Hello, and welcome to Jung at Harp,
episode 181. What happens, how do you live within the vision of your authentic self? And how do you give the gift that is yours uniquely to give, especially when sometimes that gift shows up looking kind of weird in the first place? So I am Deborah Henson-Conant. I'm here with Kathleen Wiley. I am a composer and a performer and an educator, and Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst and has a group that is all about the inner divineness and bringing that out into the world. And we both love talking about the embodiment of life and the discovery of life and the discovery of signs of intelligent life in ourselves and others. And we come here each week to talk about these things. Also, we both play the harp. And since Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst, we call this Jung at Harp. We come here streaming live on several different platforms, set up so that hopefully some of you are able to take part in the conversation through the chats. We come not with answers, but we come with questions to explore the joy and the art of conversation and discovery through conversation. So each week we pick a subject that we're both interested in, but that we don't necessarily know specifically what we think about. And I was thinking about this week because I was wondering what is the difference between visioning, delusions of grandeur, it's kind of this spectrum, and romanticizing my life. And I was looking at times of my life when the gift that is mine to give shows up, and it looks kind of weird when it first shows up. Sometimes I'll be even humiliated at how it looks. And yet, I'll give an example. I wanted to write a piece. I was in this thing of writing one-woman musicals. And the only thing that mattered was that it had to make sense that the main character would wear a harp. Like, that was it. So the first one took place in the waiting room for heaven. And the second one I was working on, it was called Honey, I Shrunk the Harp. And I would sometimes start with a very funny concept, but then it would become a deep thing. The third one I called Electra's Lyre. No idea what it was about, but I had this feeling I wanted to write it. And I was at that time in a writing group of people who were writing musicals, musical theater and opera. And we would have a round robin where every couple of months you would bring your piece. And it was time for me to present my piece, and I had no idea what it was. I just didn't, I had some vague vision of what this thing was. I could kind of see it, but I didn't know what to do. And so what I did, I put it in the form of a script. The nothing that I knew, I put in the form of a script. And then I took it to the group and had the group read it. And the way this group worked is they read things, and then they would always start with positive comments, and then they would give suggestions. The feeling that I had as I handed out these scripts, I will never forget. It was just utter shame. You all came here today. I'm handing you something that is just, it's nothing. I don't even know what it is. I handed it to them, and they read it as if it was something. And I started to see what was there. And then as they started to talk about what they saw, the piece took shape. And then it so happened that someone was visiting, someone had brought a friend, and she was a dramaturg, and she had a specialty in ancient Greece, or in ancient Greek mythology. And I ended up working with her and developing a piece that was just profound, and profound at healing something in my own life and helping me understand, what that harp healed through the story of Electra. Now, I didn't know the story of Electra. I came up with this, I thought it was an interesting name. But through this process, a vision that was not a vision at all, or that had almost no form or shape, became something beautiful and profound, and something that I could perform for an audience. So that's an example I'm just going to give one other example of where I had this vision of, it was a more clear vision that I wanted to be playing a harp in front of a symphony orchestra, and I looked kind of like a rock and roll person, and I would be louder than the brass, and I had written the music, and at that point there was no harp like that. I had not written that music. This didn't exist, but I began to exist within it. Mm-hmm. And I began to use what I had to create as much of that vision as I could, including at one point taking contact paper and putting it on this little lap harp, making it look like a Stratocaster and strapping it on, and pretending almost like a little kid, but step by step by step in these things that anyone would be like, but that's just a towel. The visions came to reality. Mm-hmm. And then change, and then had an impact. I mean, the harp ended up having this huge impact mm-hmm. on harps throughout the world because of a collaboration. Yeah, and they both included collaboration. So that's my story, Kathleen. What do you hear in that?
Well, I think our working title is Visioning from Your Essence. At least that was one reiteration of it. And I think what you're doing is you're sharing how you were visioning from your essence. And for me, our essence is our life force that is the unique ray of the divine being, by whatever name you call it, whether you're a scientist or an atheist or, a spiritual practitioner. That our essence is our own unique manifestation of that. And so, in Jungian psychology, we would equate it to the unconscious and the unconscious self, or the what is often called the larger self, or self with a capital S, that the totality of our psyche, that each of us is a unique constellation of both collective, archetypal, and instinctive energies, and our history, our historical experiences, which includes DNA, that shapes those forces, those instincts and archetypes in us. So we each are a unique combination, and to be able to hold, stand with, nurture, explore, and share a vision that begins deep within the body. I'm pointing down here to my gut, because I think these are the kinds of visions that are visions from our essence, do start deep inside of us. They don't start in the head. Now, the head gets on board, but there's a deep felt desire or sensation that begins to take form in an image. And for you, the image of being on stage in front of that orchestra, of having that harp that you could strap on like a Telecaster, that could be as loud as a Telecaster.
Stratocaster, but yes, I don't know what a Telecaster is.
At Stratocaster, yeah. Yeah, I know one of those. It has to do that. Yes, the same instrument, but with a little treble bar or whatever it's called. Tremble bar. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. It could be. I feel so dumb because I don't even know anything about electric guitars.
Oh, but yeah.
But that's the point. I think that's actually important, and I really love that because the feeling and the experience of playing electric guitar has nothing to do with electric guitar.
Right. That's right.
Or knowing anything about it.
Right.
And that's so profound. I mean, sorry, you were in the middle of something and I interrupted you with the Telecaster, Stratocaster. Can you go back to what you're saying?
Well, I just know
I know what it was.
What was it?
Well, you were talking about collective, archetypical, and intuitive vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you go? Okay, and I wanted to ask you about that. What is the difference between collective, archetypical, and intuitive vision, or what's the same?
Well, I think of them as a continuum. Mm-hmm. So the archetypal is the universal imprint, the universal energy. Mm-hmm. The collective holds the archetypal, because collective is what we all share. And the intuitive is a psychological function through which our own felt awareness of those energies in us and around us bubbles into consciousness.
So you're writing a book right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about it? Is it okay?
Yeah.
What vision or feeling vision do you have, for example, about your reader, what your reader's going to, I don't know if that's relevant or not, but I mean, I think about that in writing music. It's the feeling vision of what the person is going to do, what I'm going to see, what is going to emerge from a human being when they play this music.
Yeah, so for me, the feeling vision, the purpose for me in writing this book and the driving force, because the life force, is I want to empower people to know the divine essence in them and live from it no matter what's happening in their life. Because my observation is that most people get disconnected from their own essence by internalized, erroneous, distorted beliefs and ideas that ultimately end up shutting down their own connection to their life force, because it shuts down and devalues the felt sense that includes body sensation and emotion and affect. Affect is the word for emotion and sensation that kicks in a physiological response. So I have a felt sense of what it's like to be disconnected from that essence and living out of a persona or a role or who I think I should be, versus living from that centered, grounded place where this is the pool of who I am. And I want people to live from the pool of who they are instead of struggling to think, who should I be? Who do I need to be according to this thing or this pop culture ideal or this self-help book I've read? It's like, who is it you are created to be? And the way we discover that is looking for the seed of our essence in every life experience. Even the ones that are destructive to us, even the ones that are unpleasant, as well as the ones where we feel alive and we feel creative. It's in all of it. And our culture, again, demonizes anything that doesn't fit in whatever the definition is of positive, pleasant, and life-giving. It's the idea, I mean, an applied example of this is how depression is pathologized. But if you're a human being, at some point in your life, you're going to have feelings of depression. So how do we begin to engage with all of what we experience? Anxiety, it's a normal human affect, fear, So it's not the fear or the depression necessarily that's the problem, but it's it's our attitudes and our engagement or lack of engagement with the seed of the self inherent in it. So anyway, I feel like I maybe got a little broader than your question, but the felt sense really is about that, what it's like to live from one's own center. That has nothing to do with external expectations or one's ego's ideas or pursuits or goals.
So I want to have a little meta moment here, because I'm feeling bad that I interrupted you in the middle of the Telecaster Stratocaster thing, because what was happening in my brain was, wait a minute, what if some guitarist, what if Steve Vai watches this and he sees that I don't know and you don't know, we don't know what, and so in a conversation, in a moment when something was happening that was exactly what I was interested in, I shut it down because I was afraid that I would look stupid or we would look stupid. And it's a meta moment, because this is what happens. I actually feel like crying now, along the road to actually making something amazing. And here's an example that I've used before. When I was writing a piece called Catcher in the Rye, which is probably one of the most powerful pieces I've ever written. And it's just about wanting, the desire to be the person who supports others in their flying. And when I wrote it, and often these things, and I say this to students, I say, anything that's born is born slimy. And if you judge it for that in that moment, the thing is, if you're like, that's not a kitten, there's something wrong with it, it's slimy, get rid of it, then you never have the kitten or the cat or whatever. And I remember when I first had the idea of this, and I was trying to explain it, but I was self-conscious, and I was in a rehearsal, and there was a friend of mine in the front row just watching the rehearsal, and she just went like this, and it was dead.
Mm-hmm.
It was gone and dead, and it didn't come back for another 10 years. At which point, for whatever reason, I was able to do it. It ended up being, on the Grammy-nominated, album, and was the opportunity of a lifetime to work with a timpanist who was just exactly the kind of, and in fact, I got the heart to write it again. I just realized this because I saw him doing a timpani concerto, and I saw him do a timpani concerto because I happened to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan when there was a snowstorm, and for whatever reason, this thing is alive. But how many times does something that someone longs to create, this thing that only they can create, get squashed because when it first comes out, it doesn't look.
And because we've been trained to devalue what comes from inside of us. And that begins, if we're taught to devalue our own felt sense, our own emotional response, our own longing, then we're going to also devalue our creative babies. And so if we're devaluing, it only takes one person in the outer world who does that kind of response out externally, and then that kicks it in inside of us. And so we devalue it and set it aside.
And I'm realizing now, why. I mean, right now we're sharing a lot of the projects out of Hip Harp Academy, and every one of them is different. I mean, it's incredible. If you go to my blog, you'll see them, but they only can emerge because there is a safe environment in which we can share a work in process. And that's what happened to me in that new opera and musical theater initiative in Boston, is that my work, so it could easily have been shamed by somebody else saying, but it's not the thing, but it's not like this, but this, but they took it for what it was and actually let me see what it was, mm-hmm. rather than beating down, what everything that didn't put it. And this is especially difficult for me because as I try to show up in social media as myself, the vision that's out there is not mine. It's someone else's. When I see like, oh, I wish I was doing that. Geez, I wish I could do that. Or when somebody is like, what's trending? It's no vision of mine.
Yeah, so again, to be true to your own vision, because I believe if we're true to our own vision, then we attract to us the people that, I mean, this is going to sound really woo-woo, but I believe we then attract the people that we're to influence. I mean, I believe that there is an invisible force. I mean, Jung calls it an autonomous spiritual principle. We can call it whatever we want, many names, but I believe there's an autonomous spiritual force at work that usurps and trumps, that overrides everything that our ego knows and that the collective sets in motion. And so we have to decide. I mean, the way the spiritual people would talk about it is which God do we serve? Uh-huh. Are we going to serve the God of the social media ethos, which we know is like, sand in the wind? Or are we going to serve the heart and soul of our own nature and stand with ourselves? Because that is what holds through time.
I hear you. And I want to bring up Victoria's comment.
Yeah.
I know I know that any art form, no matter what, or any communications form, no matter how much it's set up for capitalism or whatever it's set up for, advertising, I know that it is possible to co-opt it for creative expression. Anything can become artistic creative expression, and yet I see myself somehow scared of this particular one that is an opportunity that I will just like squash.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, as my vision does start appearing in other parts of my life, I worry that I'm going to get grandiose and, like have delusions of grandeur. All right, you want to say something, or should I pull Victoria?
Let's bring Victoria's coming up, and I'll let that one perk.
Okay, all right, great. So Victoria's saying, I know someone who is disconnected from her felt sense and doesn't know how to engage with her emotions. I wonder how we can begin to connect with them in a healthy way, even when it is often scary or anxiety inducing to begin with. So I'm thinking, this is a really interesting question. I'm thinking that what Victoria is saying, if that somebody isn't herself, I don't know if it is, this is a very interesting question. If someone is difficult, is prickly, I think, what do you think she's asking?
Well, prickly didn't come to my mind. This is what I'm going to say. Have them join my embodiment circle. The second thing is get a good therapist analyst. And the third reason I'm saying all of that is because most of us disconnect from our emotions because of responses that have come our way very early in our childhood from other people in response to our emotions. So the disconnect from our emotions is usually an internalized defense mechanism to avoid feeling shamed by someone else. And wounds that happen in relationship have to be healed in relationship. We can do a lot of self-help work, and I'm a big believer in my book. It's going to have that modality, but I have the online embodiment circle for community because we need each other in order to reclaim these previously pathologized, demonized, rejected, dismissed parts of ourselves. So that's what I would say. And there are a lot of self-help books that someone can read on their own and workbooks that people can work through. And when my book comes out, it'll go in that category to do some work, some healing and movement toward their emotions on their own. So I'm not saying that there are things that one cannot do solo, because there are. And I'm hoping that my book is going to be one of those. And even my online embodiment circle, there are modules, there's material. You work with the practices throughout the month on your own, and we meet twice a month and to share about that. So, but I really want to be clear that there is a way, at least in the Western world, almost all of us suffer from some degree of this and have to heal from it because our culture has not valued emotion. And the extreme, extravagant expression of unmediated emotion, hysteria, is not healthy either. So we have these two sides. We either have this kind of massa confusa hysteria, it's all out there, or we have shutdown, too tight. So that's kind of a long answer to the question, but we can learn. And, mindfulness meditation is a great starting point. And again, there's a lot available out there. I've mentioned the book before, The Extended Brain, Thinking Beyond the Mind, by science writer Annie Murphy Paul. And she talks about, there are 3 sections: thinking with the body, thinking with the environment, and thinking with other people. And in thinking with the body, she talks about and shares scientific research that shows people who are in touch with their sensations and people who actually move with their, like your creating of the vision of the THC light Harp, there was movement involved and gesturing, that those are all ways that we actually access our essence. Because I think ultimately when she says the extended mind thinking beyond the brain. She's talking about something just beyond the intellectual, logical thinking function. I think she's talking about accessing our essence. So if you're scientifically oriented and what I've said sounds too woo-woo, go to that book and read the research. And in there, she does say that the body awareness piece, that the research shows that the best tool for knowing and getting in touch with the felt sense is a body scan, body awareness practice. Yeah.
It's really, I don't know if we answered Victoria's question, but I want to jump in because you're making me think about something. Then we'll pull up her next comment. You're reminding me of something that we did yesterday. So there's a concept that I use in the academy when I'm teaching harp called snippets, and it really is just something someone asked me one day, what's an improv idea that I can play around with, and I was like, well, here's one. I mean, like, I've been playing with these all my life, and then I started sharing more and more of them. And yesterday I was sharing one, and it was really just two chords, and I'm trying even to remember somebody asked for. They asked for something that they could improvise with that would sound Celtic. And so I was giving them this. So I just gave them that, thinking, I started exploring, well, so first I had an idea, let's go to the Mixolydian mode, because I kind of like that for Celtic stuff. But then when somebody said, I want rich harmony, I tried to add rich harmony to that, like. And that didn't work. So eventually I slowed it all down and I just took it very slow. I kept the same seed of an idea, just went very, very slow with a more rich idea. And the reason I'm saying this is that we then started playing this. We started just playing it together, although, nobody could hear each other. And we played it for a long time. And I'm pretty sure that I put it in a looper. It might still be in the looper. Let's just find out. No, it's not still there. And the reason I'm saying it, and it's coming off of what you said, is that, so I had put it in the looper that let me do. And that just let me do this. And as we did that, and then we actually started adding sort of a bluesy part to it, people started saying, I was saying, so what is that for you? And they were like, it feels like I'm like going to a new place, or it feels like I'm flying. I feel really relaxed. I feel like I can really express myself. And I was saying, like, why is that? And as we were speaking, I was thinking, it actually seems that it embodied, to use your word, all those three things that you said. You were, you said something about doing things with other people. You said something about moving, and then there was a third thing. And I was like, wow, we all actually did. That is exactly what we did. And we came away with a feeling of connection. And we were using this, like the smallest DNA bit of music. Something that just resonated and gave us space. So I don't know if that really does relate to what you're saying, but do you?
Absolutely, because the idea, the impetus came out of the body awareness of a longing and a desire, a felt sense to hear something coming back from the heart, the Celtic sound, the rich harmony. And then the movement was in the snippet, and the gesturing, which of course is involved in the harp. So, and the slowing down is that is when you slow down on the harp, there's a different movement as well as a different gesturing than if you're going quickly.
Right. And then when we added sort of blues, there was more gesturing. It was like, I think I did this. So I could have a completely different experience. And I think the rhythm was slightly different.
Right.
So what does this mean? So Victoria is saying that's such a good point. Relationship wounds can't be healed in isolation. That is why community can be so helpful. Now, and I see this happening in Hip Harp Academy, and I saw it happen to me in the New Opera and Musical Theater Initiative. The trust to share something that is nothing, and have it be seen as something, as a gift. Have it be seen as a gift.
Yeah, I was going to say, but maybe the nothing is something. And I mean, it goes back in the esoteric tradition, the ultimate autonomous spiritual principle is called the no thing.
Sorry, I'm thinking of a song from the musical, What the Hell Are You Doing in the Waiting Room for Heaven? And it's like, nothing can be something if you do it with a melody. Add a little beat, something for your feet, and boom, you've got a song. Oh, nothing can be something if you add a little melody. Whatever. So come on along with a nothing little song, 'cause it's something if you sing with me. Whatever, like that. Okay, sorry.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
No, but I think it's great. It is that paradox of life, So, but it's dark.
You're right. So nothing can be something if you add a little melody. You mean like if you start, add a little beat, something for your feet, and then boom, you're there. You're actually in it.
Now we've got the plan for vision. How do you vision? You start with nothing. That is something. You give it a little feet. You give it a melody, and then it takes feet. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Right. And then the end of the song is because it's something when you sing with me. So it kind of embodies, or it includes everything that you said. You start with nothing. You add something that involves your voice and your body, and then you do it with someone else in a trust way, and now you've got something.
Right. Yeah, because the 3 section in Annie Murphy's Paul's books are thinking with the body, thinking with the environment, and thinking with other people. So again, that place that community has when you sing with me. So we come together on Friday mornings to sing together with Victoria and all who join us.
Uh-huh.
And so something, the nothing we show up with, which is, okay, what's the question of the day, becomes something. And it does then take on a life. It moves. It has a movement of its own that we then walk away with kernels from. We walk away with little snippets for our life.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is I was talking to AI and saying, wait a minute, what is DNA and how is this like DNA? And it was kind of saying, well, because it's these snippets that you share are infinitely variable. They're accessible. They are creative at any level of technical ability. Mm-hmm. Like this idea of that I could teach you, I mean, well, you know how to play the harp, but I could even teach someone who doesn't know how to play the harp. And they could actually, if you had 2 people, one of whom was going like this, and someone else who didn't know how to play the harp, just having fun with it. This idea is infinitely scalable from I never touched this instrument before to I can build a symphony out of this. that is,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is play with it. So I hear that kind of my question is being answered in that if I deny myself the environment in which to play, and I think that this isn't good enough unless, then it can't expand. Life can the life force of music cannot expand in that environment.
Yeah, I think ultimately we need an other. I sometimes think about that movie and I forget the name of it, but Tom Hanks started it and he was in the military and the plane went down on this isolated island
Oh,
and all
with the
soccer ball, Wilson, the soccer ball. And so when he's out and sea on his raft and Wilson, the soccer ball is there. Can't remember the details, but if the soccer ball was on the raft with him or someone, but it was Wilson. It wasn't a soccer ball to him anymore. It psychologically, we would say it was a self object. He was relating to parts of himself projected on this wall. And I can remember the agony of his cry when Wilson drowned in the sea. So and
Was it
why did I
a self object or was it an other object?
both?
Oh, okay. All right.
Both
Okay.
because we the other mirrors back to us parts of the self, so it's both and. Yeah.
And Wet Lobo is saying sometimes the most fluent communication is what resists articulation.
Yeah, and the reason I'm going to say is because as soon as something becomes articulated, it's in a particular word, it's in a particular snippet, then it starts to die. The energy once contained becomes static and inert because it can't change form anymore. Now, the beauty of music is that there can be that articulation that then is followed by another and another and another.
I see. So when somebody tries to say like, oh, I have to remember what I did last time, then then it becomes a composition. Then it becomes a different thing. It's not improvisation anymore. And it then can come alive in a different way through recreation. It's just a different thing in which the subtleties of like, anyway, we could go on and on about that, but this is really interesting. Well, I'm going to think about this. And also about a smell comes to me about Wet Lobo because I'm imagining, I don't know, it's a wet wolf. What do I know?
Oh, I love it.
I know we're nearing the end. Is there?
We are nearing the end. I want to say one thing about the fluent communication. So, in the embodiment circle and in the book, I talk about 6 embodiment practices. The first being body awareness, then relaxation, then rhythmic breathing being the first 3. And the reason is that when we can continue to be present and know what's going on in our body, we can stay relaxed and not tighten against it. And we can just keep breathing with that cycle of taking in and letting go. Then the communication of our body mind, which comes up through our felt sense of sensation and emotion, first and foremost, then image and thought arise, will just keep flowing. And so we don't get stuck in feedback loops that we know are problematic. We get stuck there when we hold on to it and we quit being in the flow. So my parting thought for today with visioning from your essence is to stay in the flow so that you can be moved. You can be moved. And I say can be moved because I do believe the essence of who we are, that autonomous spiritual principle, will moves through our essence. And when we start getting up here, disconnected from here, trying to figure it all out, that's when I think we get ourselves in trouble and can then move into grandiosity and delusions of grandeur because we think we're doing it. When in truth, we're a conduit for this essence and this flow. And not only are we a conduit, we're a mediator that shapes. So we have a very important role.
Well, I couldn't help but think about, as you were talking about breathing, and I was thinking everything you're saying is exactly what I teach and think, and with an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
The instrument as an extension of who you are. Mm-hmm. And what I really love that you said, I mean, I love everything that you said, but when you said something like, if we want to do it in a way that we can be moved.
Yes.
So we do it in a way that's simple enough that we can do it. So we can be moved. And I think that is the heart of snippet that I teach. And now I'm getting from this that it's time for me to discover what snippet means in other parts of life, so that I can engage in a way that allows me to be moved by what I am doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, visioning from your essence. I always love to go back. Did we answer the question? I haven't. I have something to work with.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you to Green Rose and to Wet Lobo and Victoria, and for everyone who listens and tells us afterwards, the conversations that we have afterwards, as well as the wonderful conversations that we have here. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Will you be here next week, Kathleen?
Yes.
So will I. I hope you will be too. And you can also see the entire podcast. We're starting to release old episodes through all the podcast places. I don't do this, so somebody else does it. Anyway, they're now available. Just go to jungatharp.com, and there's a little thing up above Kathleen that shows you that. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.